Another episode with Robby Ellis, Neolife owner and head physical therapist. I know he was on here on the second or third episode. What have you been up to since then?
Is this good?
Yeah.
Man, a lot has happened.
I don't know what to do with my hand.
A lot has happened. I guess really Alan getting his career jump started and all the work we've been doing and kind of getting to see that all unfold has been really cool.
Yep.
And then we opened a clinic in Bay St. Louis. I don't think we were open over there.
No, I knew about the one in Gulfport. I didn't even know y'all had one over there.
Yeah, we opened a clinic in Bay St. Louis during COVID, actually.
Man, you're getting a lot of employees underneath you then.
Yeah. We have 30 employees, and it's holding steady. And the really it's outcome driven. So as a medical business, and when you're doing customer service like care, I mean, you're in there now. You see, it's just there's an extra. There's just a little extra level to it in terms of just people that are really connected to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And, so it's really just it's a great team now, and so now I don't really do as much in the clinic.
Yeah, I noticed.
But there's just more to do in terms of the organization.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying getting to do a lot of mentorship and just stepping back from having like a day-to-day schedule. It's been really awesome because now I'm available in a different way.
Well, that's the plan in every business, is to get the business good enough to where you don't even have to work.
Yeah. I mean, the way you work changes.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really just the time that I spend now, it's more efficient. So like when I'm working with, and you're developing people too. So part of it is if you're developing somebody, if you're going to continually step it back in and out of the picture in certain ways, then you're disabling them.
Yeah.
And so I've been really fortunate to recruit not just good therapists, but just my administrator, Becky, my brother-in-law, Bachi, and my front office, all the girls up there, Laurel and Maddie and Jill and Tina in Bay St. Louis. It's like kind of like you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
And I think if you build something and it's based off of good values, eventually it just has to work because it's based off something pure.
So is yours the biggest one on the coast now between all three?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I just focus on what we do. I used to pay attention and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
I think it's part of just growing as a person.
Not competing with anybody else.
I'm competing with me, man. You know how it is.
Oh, yeah.
Sky's the limit when you do that because, you compare yourself to somebody else. The worst thing that can happen is you actually hit that goal.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if that's your game, then you're kind of left.
Yeah, you got a ceiling. Yeah, you got a ceiling.
Exactly.
You don't know what to do after that. Well, if y'all didn't know, then I'm going through physical therapy because I tore my ACL, and I'm doing it through them. And what all have you seen so far? Like, I've been doing physical therapy with y'all for like a month now, and at first I was going for 5 days a week, and then now I'm going 3 times a week. Tell us the steps from the beginning till, I guess, through each step till the end, as far as like what I've done and what I need to do or what I will be needing to do.
Right. Well, Brandon had the surgery that he had done was it was, instead of a patella tendon graft, they used a semitendinosus graft, which is a portion of his hamstring.
So when they say hamstring tendon, what is that?
It's basically the end of the hamstring, closer to where it attaches to the knee.
Gotcha.
And it's a denser piece of tissue, and it's really.
But it's not an actual tendon.
It's kind of like where the muscle starts turning into the attachment, where it's just that thick white dense tissue, and so the procedure they did with you, they actually put the knee at a specific angle, and they orient it to where the drill that they use actually matches the orientation of the ACL. and then they drill a tunnel all the way through your shin bone.
Are they looking at a screen the whole time they're doing this, or are they actually looking at my knee?
They can do it without it being image guided, because it's just, I mean, it's really, they have everything so fixated and positioned in a certain way, and they have instrumentation that helps kind of make sure they're where they need to be. And then obviously the landmarks on the tibia, and then they're basically drilling a tunnel all the way up through and then into the femur, and so essentially the same line of your ACL, or within a millimeter or two of it, and then they'll come back with that graft and they'll push it all the way through and then anchor it into the femur and then pull out the guide or whatever, and then you're left where they'll pull out and tension the ACL when they come back out of that tunnel into your shin bone.
So does the ACL come across like this? Because I wasn't sure if it went straight down the knee or across.
Yeah, it goes just like that.
All right.
Yeah, it goes. It's just like what you just did.
Okay. Do they both X, the MCL and the ACL? Mm-hmm. Did not know that. Yeah. I figured they were like straight down the sides.
The ACL and the PCL.
PCL.
If you do your fingers like that, it kind of gives you an idea of the orientation where your ACL would be here and your PCL would be here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I figured it was like straight down the sides and people tear it in like tears from here.
It's right in the center.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's really, and I think part of what you're learning and what you've learned so far is that there's a fixation in if you think about where the ligament or the graft tissue that they're using to replace the ligament is going into that bone on either end, there's a maturity process that it goes through where essentially it becomes fixed, that ligament and that soft tissue can become fixated within that bone.
Yeah.
And so, it's a slower process just because ligaments don't have a great blood supply. And then also, as your body accepts that tissue, it will actually start to form its own vasculature, and then it'll go through a period where it's a little soft. So it'll go through like a vascularization phase, and then usually that's between weeks 8 and 12. I mean, really, like week 10 is kind of...
Oh, that late? So you need to be careful
during that period, because it'll actually, like, you're getting close to the point where you probably don't have a whole lot of pain.
Only when I flex it to like 120 degrees.
Like moving around.
Yeah, none, zero pain.
With the exercises, I'm sure you can get to points. But the idea is that you kind of get to a point where you start feeling pretty confident right when that's about to happen, and that's really like a danger zone, because you have to almost really encourage athletes to like pump the brakes, because you build off that momentum.
Yeah. I was confident day 3 when you gave me that cane. I was like, fuck these crutches, I'm going on the cane.
Yeah. And then after you hit pads that day and I saw that video, I was like, if anybody can do it, you can do it. But from my perspective, seeing it go south, it scares the death out of me, because I just think of that Dominic Cruz situation.
Yeah.
And then, the procedures have come so far, and they're much more likely to succeed these days, just because the way they do them, they're less invasive. They don't have to really cut your knee so wide open.
It's crazy. I have 3 little holes and a little cut like that across my shin bone.
Right. And Dr. Karpaskaya performed your surgery, and she's great. I mean, she's worked with so many athletes here on the coast and has great outcomes. And her re-injury rate is super low. And I think that's a testament to the fact that she's an athlete herself.
Yeah.
And she's
gone through it. She's had a torn ACL.
Yeah, she's had all this stuff. So I think that's the best teacher is going through something yourself, to give you a different level of respect for from the surgical perspective. The surgery is such a, really in the grand scheme of things, is about 25% of the problem being solved, and then the 75% comes in the rehabilitation, and because really return to sport criteria being met for ACL post-operatively can go anywhere from, I've seen them back full, a young soccer player where at 4 months we tested everything we could in a way to try to convince ourselves why he shouldn't return, and it was just there. And you have to,
then nothing, never had an injury after that.
No, he's perfect.
It's crazy because you said it's weak. I mean, not weak, but soft between months 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So for him to be able to be back at 4 months is crazy.
And that was a patella tendon graft, believe it or not. And it was a semitendinosus graft like you had, which believe it or not, since it's less invasive and they don't take out a big hunk of your knee, the middle of your patella tendon, it actually gets better much faster. But like I said, it's just making sure that you get good. If you don't get good fixation early, then down the road it can become problematic. And that's kind of why, I encourage you to slow down a little bit, just because that's the thing. It's a ligament, so it's not like something. When it gives, it's not always something that you can control, and with post ACLs, your nervous system is in a weird way not fully engaged with that leg. And you probably noticed, it's almost not like it's a strength problem, it's like a connection problem in some ways, and then also you don't really know how much you depend on your eyes right now for your foot placement and for your balance in different ways. And so you don't really know until you start challenging those things and start taking away certain senses to where you see how much your unconscious proprioception is working for you all the time, stepping off curves or moving around in space. And so once you get to the point where you could take the brace off and you're more relaxed as far as precautions, that's the stuff you'll be surprised. Just like when let's say if I'm losing my balance backwards and just like active putting your foot back, there might be a little delay or something, and you're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much what our therapy is focused on, is more neuro-orthopedic, where we try to really think about engaging the nervous system and make sure that we're getting good connection and communication through all the way from the core, obviously through the central nervous system, through the muscle patterns that need to work for you.
Yeah, Tyler always makes sure that his core, quad, then straighten the leg and lift it up.
Yeah, everything works from the center outward, and that's a big thing I think that's almost really unique to us, where that's a process that's kind of a core value in terms of using the respiration and the core compression, and then the breath cycle with every movement.
Yep.
And that's the part of the neurologic conditioning, because it's just that rhythmic flow of every activity. You get a little bit more out of everything because you feel more from it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I noticed is just as far as the breathing thing you said at the end, or talking about the breathing at the end, whenever I go to get a measurement on how much flexion I have, I always do better when I have good breathing. If I hold my breath, it's not going even close. It might be 107, but then when I start breathing correctly, I hit 118 pretty easily.
Well, your breath is, if you think about it, is one of the best indicators for the kind of your internal temperature, and it's in terms of being able to give you a sense of your body's tension and tone. Your body's it records your emotional past in a way, and so whatever tension that you're holding, you'll find that your breathing might not be as full. If you go take a deep breath, you almost might find you're kind of resisting yourself in a way on that first big breath.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a good indicator, and that's why breath work is so big for me, because it really is essential to kind of momentarily address that kind of, okay, I'm a little restricted or whatever, and then just really work on opening and moving that diaphragm. And then it's every time you do it, you're like, okay, cool, all right. And it's crazy because anything in your chest, and the thing is, it's kind of when we're stressed, everybody says that my traps carry all this tension.
Yep.
It's true. It's because your thoughts and all this stuff, and we're dwelling, and then we become in this focal state where we become hyper focused instead of seeing everything in more broader sense, panoramic view. and it's just a result of accumulating stress and cortisol and all these things. And so that's kind of a part of what we like to preach to in terms of health and wellness, is trying to help people find mechanisms to just manage their day, just to give them a little more quality of life. It doesn't always have to be like we have injuries and this and that. Like, everyone can benefit from learning how to kind of open up and breathe through their diaphragm. And almost you don't know you can't do it until you get challenged a little bit, and then it almost always opens people's eyes to, okay, I can see how valuable this is. You know?
Yeah.
But obviously, when you come all the way back to a surgery, it's that much more valuable because you're dealing with a lot, you know, and there's a lot of ifs and there's a lot of anticipation because you're always waiting for moments to where you can take another step.
Yes.
You know, and so it requires a lot of patience and diligence. And as an athlete and at the highest level, that's one of the cool things about the situation you're in, is that, you know, you're back in a place that you work so hard to be. And it's like, this is something that you worked through for over a year and a half, if I'm thinking properly.
Oh, almost 2 years. I tore it literally after I got released from the UFC the first time, like 2 months after that.
Right.
So it was like it was like 3 or 4 months after that. So it was like in March of 2020. Yeah, so it was almost 2 years ago.
And I remember just being blown away how you were able to come in for, 4 weeks. I mean, I feel like anything we've done, like within 4 weeks, you're pretty much to a point where we feel pretty safe with whatever. And it was really a long-term plan as far as getting surgery.
Yeah.
And weighing out the options and just trying to, go back and forth and see what's best and look at different doctors. And we even got
finances in case I didn't make it back to the UFC.
Sure. But in a way, had you not gone through adversity, I don't think you would have found so much other things working out for you in terms of the UPS situation.
Oh yeah, needed that insurance.
It almost like made you dig a little deeper, to get some security.
Oh yeah, definitely. It made me also learn how to change my striking around, because I can rely on left kicks at all hardly, because I can stable myself on my right leg,
Right.
stuff like that. But we'll get back to all that and the breathing and the movement stuff. So in the beginning, why in the beginning on the first 3 weeks was I coming 5 days a week, and why did it change to 3 days a week?
Well, in
there?
your case, post-operatively, if anybody can get in the day after surgery.
The day after?
Oh man, like
I came 3 days.
Well, you can
after.
think the most uncomfortable periods are usually like, let's just say sometimes, depending on the surgery, if they use a nerve block.
Yes,
then you
I
might
still feel that a little bit.
You might have like 24 hours to 30 hours, 36 hours of relief from that. But the thing is, if you don't start managing the inflammation and the internal bleeding and all the swelling and erythema that's happening, and being intentional about it, there's things you can do at home, but I mean, that's what we do. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's very limited in terms of like exercise and things like that, but as soon as we can get some stimulation in that quadricep and get that muscle firing and get some information moving through your nervous system, just perceiving the sensations of that muscle contraction, it just gives a big boost, and it plays big dividends as time goes on. And then getting that fluid off of it, it's increasing blood flow because you're getting a lot of the garbage out of it. So
Yeah.
it releases that pressure, which allows those little capillaries at the tips of the branches of the arteries to open a little wider, to get more oxygenated blood flow and perfusion where it matters, deep in that joint. And so, I would say anybody that's looking at the evidence is going to see that it's massive improvements. You can go, if you look at athletes at the highest level, at like James Andrews too, or at some of these big places, they're in therapy the next day. The rounds happen in the therapy clinic. So
Yeah.
like James Andrews, when I was there, he would actually come in and do all his post-op follow-ups in the PT clinic right there where we were. And so I would actually, in front of him,
It's in Gulf Shores?
yeah, with the goniometer, like go ahead and look at all of our post-operative range of motions and stuff. Like the next day, he's grabbing and moving arms and knees and stuff like that. And just it surprised me because I was like, wow, he's confident in his surgeries because he wasn't sitting there being too passive about it. Like he was secure and firm with everything he did, and it didn't look like it hurt. Like nobody was really, you know.
Yeah, that surprised me. I mean, even 3 days in, I mean, I was surprised that I think I got like 90 something degrees on the first day, 97 or 102. I can't remember, somewhere around there.
And it's not about pushing it at that point. It's just about getting it moving, and some of that needs to be passive. You got a CPM and stuff, but really thinking about gravity's effect, like the position of just sitting in an independent position for long periods of time. To like if you had to sit just like this right after surgery, your knee would just stay swollen.
Oh, I can feel it right now.
Yeah,
I can feel it right now with it being bent.
Gravity's taking you, and then also you're kinking the hose a little bit just because. That's just any bend in that knee is just going to kink that hose slightly. And when it comes to blood flow and oxygen perfusion into soft tissue, it's not all the time this dramatic loss. It could just be a subtle loss it's about time. So, you know, if let's just say it's like 10% less flow over 3 hours in a situation where, you know, and not only that, but then those waste products have a hard time getting out through the lymphatic system when your leg's still.
Yeah.
Because it depends on movement, muscle action to actually get all that moving. And that's another part of the core compression and the diaphragm, pelvic floor stuff that we always talk about.
Yeah.
That's the driving pump for all those lymphatic channels. And since that's kind of what's drawing everything back to the center of your body to be moved out. And so that's something that we've just kind of stumbled upon, believe it or not. That's really not a lot of information on that in the literature. They always discuss lymphatic and waste product removed out of your limbs as a result of like the calf moving and the quad moving and all that stuff, which is true. It's ebb and flow that's helped by that, but it's really more about it's this movement that occurs between your pelvis and your lower ribs and your diaphragm. And so that's kind of a big part of why we're always so keen on that, because we want to really think about it like a gas bulb on an outboard motor. You know how you squeeze it and you gotta relax it, right? And when you relax it, it fills up.
Yep.
When you squeeze it, it pushes it out.
Gotcha.
Relax it, it fills up. And so it's that type of system. And so you're kind of using those short arc quads with your toe up and getting the calf elongated with that exhalation. And then there's a relaxation and like a refilling, and that's just, you can almost imagine the fluid just kind of slowly channeling its way back where it needs to go. So that's something that's always been real important. But also when I was in those, when I was like in James Andrews for my clinical work as a student, that was one of the things I noticed was like one of his obsessions was post-operative bleeding and like inside of the joint, just from the fact it's a lot of bleeding going on. I mean, they're cutting through a lot of things generally. And so
he wants a lot of blood in there though, because it helps heal, or no?
Well, it's more tissue that needs to heal. So anywhere you take tissue apart, even though you suture it together, there's a long process of scar tissue formation, the same way it happens externally, internally. And you got to think there's layers. And so when you have, you know, epidermis and dermis and fascia and muscle, it's like you have all these layers, and then when you cut into them, they all want to kind of blend together. Yeah. And so that's where it just, you know, internally, obviously, just related to the joint capsule and stuff like that, it's naturally getting enough movement to where that's going to remodel normally. But what's funny is those keloid scars that can form externally and can bury down all the way into like your fascial layers, and that's why it's so important to also, depending like total knee replacements, things like that, if they don't come back and do some form of soft tissue mobility, and those instruments do help tons, and the cupping and all that stuff helps just because it's pulling blood and resources to that area in different ways. So but it's really more about the timing of those things. There's no manual therapy technique, or there's no dry needling. It all helps, it's great individually, but there's nothing in itself that I would support by itself. Right?
Yeah.
It's really just being smart about understanding the soft tissue healing time frames, and then obviously from our standpoint, mechanically, what's going to be put in, what do we want to avoid in terms of what loads are going to actually isolate that ligament. And other than that, really just helping people have the freedom to, or permission to slow down when they need to slow down and speed up when they need to speed up, and having the discretion to know when that's appropriate,
Yeah. So what's a realistic end goal, you think, for me as far as getting back to being able to train?
Realistic end goal? To me, a perfect rehab for you is 6 months return to sport. And
That's just to training, not actually fighting.
No, I think we can do. I think between months 4 and 6, there's going to be some modified way that you'll be able to do some pretty decent training.
Yeah.
Yep. But that's whenever me and you are going to be doing a lot. That's really when I become more important.
Gotcha.
It's like when we get back to those fine details of really trying to see like where we are, and then where we need to be in terms of your sport specific movements.
Yeah.
And that's that's the fun part of what I do now. It's really getting out of the clinical setting a little bit, and then using all that science and knowledge and kind of background, and then applying it to just strictly performance. But realizing too that every athlete you work with all have problems.
Yeah.
So a part of this is just putting the rehab as the first part of everything we do in terms of what we're working on in Brunch Club and stuff. And so it's the idea. It's just like at 9 o'clock, fighters typically have a problem because they have too much freedom of time.
Yes.
Besides you have UPS. So
Well, right now I'm not doing anything.
Well, you're a different breed in a way in a lot of what you do. But yeah, and you need a break.
I get bored now that I just sit around, go to physical therapy, and play Call of Duty right now.
Mm-hmm.
Basically it.
And maybe this is a good season for that, because I think there's been times where you pushed it a little too hard.
Oh yeah.
But that's kind of what I've found through working with these guys, and like making it important to really set some structure around our strength and conditioning, and turning it into something that's really adaptable. But most importantly, it gives a reason to start the day, and then it's always one of those things you feel better when you're done, and it's working on a lot of things, especially when we push it, but we do just as much in terms of being really smart about recovery, and really spending time talking about diet, nutrition, talking about timing of these things, and just it's not always about, there's nothing perfect, but it's nice to have people in a group where there's a dialogue and discussion about these different things, and it's just kind of a cool process to be a part of, because I feel like there's just a core group of guys around that gym that's always been there, but it's almost like all their lives and goals and focus are all kind of really starting to narrow in.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to be around right now, and so I'm just happy just to be in the mix. I've been in this game with you guys in Allen's gym for over 10 years.
Longer than I have. in at this gym, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so it's pushed me as a not just as a therapist, but it's really this last year and a half, and since we've started getting serious, like it's given me so much more fulfillment as an athlete, because I was a football player for 12 years, and I guess I put so much focus into like my family, my business, and all these other things. I was really putting my health on the back burner, and so it doesn't even matter if it's nobody even shows up. Like I'm going to do what I have to do.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of being able to push the pace and have like, what's the best motivation to have like pro fighters, and if I'm setting the pace, you know,
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be the doctor or whatever. So it's almost like I don't even have to say nothing. It's almost you see it
Oh yeah.
correct itself, and I enjoy that because I like pushing myself, and I want to learn about this sport so much too, because I want to be able to push and grow in terms of taking guys like you in your situation and getting you back better than you were before you came before the injury, and believe it or not, you will, because you never have had this time to like really settle in, and you have nothing else to focus on except for just making the most of this rehab and getting your knee right, and learn about some details about your body and movement and in ways that you would have never just spent that time had you not been in this situation. And it doesn't seem meaningful now, but you'll see as in hindsight that it's powerful. And like, if there's so many examples of it, we've talked in the past about, you know, Conor McGregor coming off his ACL injury, and look how his body transformed and his hips.
Oh yeah.
Just in his
When he fought Max, he was still skinny.
Yeah, and so he really spent that time transforming where his muscle was, and you know, I mean, he didn't have the injury, but you see what Sugar Sean's doing now.
Yes.
In terms of like where you can see where he's packing it on. He looks like he's wearing a dirty diaper. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's just these guys in these trying to stay in these lower weight classes getting smart and realizing that all their power derives from their hips, and so they're just packing on there, and in doing so, you know, you really don't put on a lot of weight. The weight you put on is just more meaningful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's a cool part of this too, is just getting to see everybody progress in their own lanes. But most importantly, the most gratification is coming from like finding myself again as an athlete and performing in ways and trying to grow, even if it's just like through yoga.
Yeah.
Like really focusing on like mastering that stuff. And
Yeah.
like putting it, making it important, and you know, whatever it may be, our programming is evolving, and so it's like a book that's being written through the process, you know. And I've kind of wanted to keep it undefined, and you know, have people ask me like, what are we gonna, you know, what's with Movement Doc, you know, or I have DMs sometimes where people are asking if I'm gonna have a program to sell, or if I have something that they can keep up with, and I've had people ask me as far as like, am I training clients now and stuff like that, and it's no, I'm not, and this has really just been about me and the people in my circle.
Yeah.
And I don't want to define it, and I really don't. I don't have any intentions. All I know is that I love what I'm doing right now, and I almost don't want to taint it and bring it into monetary exchange, you know.
Yeah, but you wanted to help. You're wanting to help us. Why not help a lot of people?
Well, and I
And
think
make
it
some
will.
money at the same time.
Well, I think for me, I would rather my success come through your success. You come back from this and then tear it up in the UFC, and then me being a part of that story is through the outcome. And
Yeah.
Like in seeing people being able to see you come back and be better and stronger. To me, that's what I would like my legacy to be, based off of the results, and just let it speak for itself. You know? And I think all the time, you know, the monetization and any type of rewards, to me, those blessings come raining down tenfold when you focus on being the guy instead of trying to be the guy.
Yeah.
Instagram or whatever. And you know, I'm so blessed to have Batchy that he really just captures the content while we're doing what we're already doing.
Yeah.
And we made a clear choice that lifestyle, in terms of championship mindset, is the only true way. And you can't really have this cycle where you're going through, where you notice the people that do really well, they kind of train because they enjoy training, and they do it at a level that they continue to enjoy it, and they don't feel the urge to like go in there and do stuff that's going to harm themselves.
Yeah, they don't burn themselves out either.
Because they understand it's a bigger picture. And so you don't see guys doing like they used to, where they used to walk around at 220 and fight at 185. And,
Yeah.
you know, all that nonsense where they were just destroying their bodies. And who knows what the long-term effects of that kind of stuff is. And then also where you train or you don't train for periods of time, and then you go into camp and you just spar way too much.
Yep.
And then
Old school.
Yeah, you go into the fight a shell of yourself. And it's sad because I've seen so many good fighters, and because you don't get a second chance in a fight. When you got that L, it's an L. There's no.
Oh yeah.
So there's no reset. There's no redo. So to see guys that have lost fights and I know they should have won. I watched how hard they worked and how good they did in training, but just know that they probably did too much, you know. And so that's where the sport psychology, I guess, and really the emotional talking, like getting on the table and talking about like what is emotional intelligence, and as a fighter, like being self-aware in terms of how you're using your emotions. And because everybody, in my opinion, that fights uses fear as a motivator, but just totally different in terms of how they do that, because there's no escaping the fear of. That's what fighting essentially is, like the core of what it generates. But you see certain guys eat that for breakfast, and certain guys, it creates that tunnel vision to where they get that hyper-focused, all that tone I was talking about, and that focal vision, and they lose this sense of awareness that is so valuable and important when you're in there. You need to be in full panoramic mode.
Yeah.
If you're sitting there trying to focus, that's what's getting you hurt, you know. And also, like, it's not about like being okay getting hit is not okay, you know. It's like just taking damage is not okay. And I feel like I've learned through working with fighters that when they really get their focus on their defense first, like literally learn, okay, head movement starts before strikes are thrown, not after, and like develop patterns of flow that allow them to stay in a perpetual movement that is causing their opponent to have to react to them. And that is, in a sense, defense, but it's offensive, right? Like the Saints strategy.
Yes.
So you have to impose yourself in order to be defensive, because now I'm limiting your output, I'm staying safer, right? And then from there, like really being careful about when you're taking opportunities to position yourself on the sides of your opponent, the stuff we talk about all the time. But what stops guys from doing that a lot of time is just, it's because they used adrenaline in anger and they learned that they could win fights like that when they were a kid.
Yeah.
And then some people learn how to change what's that emotional drive, and some people hide behind that curtain, because sometimes most guys that I know that have gotten to fighting, it's like when you learn about what you can, like it's almost like as a kid you don't always know what you can do. You get put in a situation, and then all of a sudden you're scared to death, and you end up winning or something. It's like, okay, this is a ticket. You know? Like my son even told me, he's like, Dad, when I'm angry, I hit so much harder and I'll do better in sparring, because he does sparring on Saturdays. And it just made me think, like, you know what? That's how every single boy becomes in love with fighting.
Yes.
Because it's like, it's such an enlightening feeling because you're scared, and then you find something inside of you, and then it works. And then then what happens is you get guys that just never learn how to change what's driving their need and desire to fight from fear and anger. Instead, they and like guys like you, I feel like through exposure, but through also just being humble and learning and listening, and like even what you do with your podcast, it's really like you see with Joe Rogan, like that guy's not really, he'll even say it's not that he's the smartest guy in the world, but he's like talking to all the smartest people, you know, so he's getting all that. You know, it's like a medium for just massive amounts of information. And that's what I think the nature of the modern day champion warrior fighter is it's really back into the roots of like a samurai as like a servant, and also there's a lot of history in terms of warriors and being shamans and healers and really important people in their cultures and their tribes, and not just for what they did on the battlefield, but who they were in their communities.
Yeah.
And I think that's something special. And my thing is just kind of being on the outside and then coming into it. I think that's the part I look at it and maybe bring to the conversation something that's valuable, and maybe it's just thinking about something a little differently, and then realizing the significance of what you're doing. And as a fighter, it's such an opportunity, but it does take so much to do what y'all do and step in there, but to think about you're getting to live like a lifestyle where you're truly challenging yourself and getting to know yourself better than most people ever get to know themselves. Because you know the truth about yourself, because you put yourself in so many situations where you found out.
Yeah. Yeah, can't lie to myself.
Yeah, but that's awesome, because not many people can say that. And so I mean, that's really it goes all the way back to like my passion for working with you guys, and it's totally given me so much more than I've given to you guys.
Well, I think you should go like Knees Over Toes guy, or was it Squat University? You follow them on there too? Yeah, he always has good hip stuff, and I think you need to monetize and help everybody and yourself.
I think it'll happen. It'll happen. I just think I gotta be careful about once you start to kind of go down a lane, it's hard to pull back.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm just having a great time with
it.
And it's growing. I mean, I'm already up to like almost 8,000.
Yeah, I noticed that. And where were you at before you started changing your name to Movement Doc and all that?
Like 1,000.
Yeah, I noticed the other day. I looked at it, I was like, oh man, he's growing. So I like try to share everything that you post, or if you tag me in it, because I don't see all of them, but the ones I do see, I share, or if you tag me in, I share.
And then what's cool too is like I've really connected to certain products that have really become a part of like the culture of like, I guess, my method in a sense, where like the inertia bands and the paraballs and the Bulgarian bags, like part of it is, I don't know, maybe people look at it and just think it looks cool, because it does, it looks cool, it's fun. But the reality is that it addresses fundamental core neurologic, neuromuscular principles in a way that works so well for fighters, because everything is tied to flow. It's tied to weight shifting, crossing the midline, rotation, movement, and we're doing it, let's say if you're doing a Bulgarian bag, you're doing it for a minute, right? So at first you might whatever, but you know what I'm saying, you find that slot, you find your breath, and then there's that reciprocal flow, and you're grounding and turning and torquing your feet to the ground with a load away from you. Like, I can't tell you how valuable that is, just to like perpetually be adding that into the things that we're doing.
Yeah.
These things that are throwing your momentum and shifting you to where you have to stabilize and generate stability, connection to the ground in a different way. And I think it's paying dividends in terms of guys finding their power, but it's not through.
Yeah.
It's through actually precision and tight movement and really it all is coming from the core.
I think that's one thing that made me know a lot about striking, or once I learned turning and all that, because when I came down here I was like, man, you need to turn and do this, and then set you up for this and do that. I think that made me get so much better at striking and learn a lot more, and learn that your power comes through this when we do.
You're the first person that told that, well, because you don't feel it when you're doing it, but the cue in terms of pulling your back shoulder back to drive forward, like you're the first person that introduced that to me, and then after you did, like I became like obsessed with like really thinking about it differently and focusing more on generating that terminal extension through that back shoulder.
Yeah.
And then you know, it's funny too, because then you think about like where you end up in terms of how to get yourself into the right position. And then another good principle that you taught me that's like fundamental even to my son when I'm watching him is really moving to your back leg on your jab. And what's funny is I was talking to a long southpaw, and he was telling me, and he's really good. You know Andrew.
Your Fantas?
Monica's gym.
Yeah.
So he was telling me it's like he's really good, and he's just like, man, I just feel like I'm having so much trouble getting power on my left hand. And when he fights out southpaw, it's like straight lefts and stuff. He's like, I feel like I'm.
He's moving all his power in on the jab instead, so just arm punch on the two.
So he was like floating his back foot and getting all his weight on his front leg, and then just kind of following through.
Yeah, arm punch.
So it feels strong, but you know what I'm saying. It's not. It's just like it feels fast, or you can kind of throw that 1-2 real fast, but it just doesn't have.
It's like trying to move your weight to the front foot and hit a baseball instead of moving your weight through as you hit the baseball. Right. It's going to be a lot softer of a hit. You're not going to hit a home run like that.
Exactly. And then if you think about it, it's almost as simple as a post and a pivot. Everything is based off of a post that you're shifting to and a pivot on the back leg.
Yes.
A post you're shifting to and a pivot on the back leg. And then balance in terms of if people could just stay within their hips and not get themselves off balance.
Yes.
It's
preach.
It's crazy.
Preach.
Right? But it's funny because like these are things that you've taught me, holding mitts and different things like that, and then I'll just start thinking about it. And
it goes to way more than just fighting.
Yeah.
It goes to everything.
And that's why, like, when I found the Bulgarian bags and I found all this stuff, like, I got so connected to it because I swear all these little things and there's like these seeds that get planted and then it goes back into, then I'm like, this is it. Like, these are the things that matter. And then we can like get rid of all this crap. And guess what? This is also fun. And like, we can change it up and do it different ways and just be like kids. And now the question becomes, as it starts working, like, so Alan's went 4-0 and he's doing really well, and he's going to go through and just take the BKFC belt and just dominate.
I think he will easy.
He will. He's a supreme athlete, and he's got the drive and belief and the work ethic and everything it takes. And he doesn't waste his energy on things that don't matter.
Yeah.
That's one thing he's taught me. He's just not going to waste energy on things that are going to suck life out of him and take away from.
I think that's all kind of recent, like as far as like within the last year.
Yes. And so I just admired that so much because it's something I feel like I want to learn more about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Also, like, grace. The dude just has so much. It's kind of just natural for him. He just doesn't get hung up, and like holding grudges or like being upset about something stupid. And I think that's a part of like dang, that's to me, that's why I already can say like, yeah, he's going to win a championship.
Yeah.
Because I know what he's built from. There's no faking. It's just who he is. It's just like he was born that way or whatever. But then the drive behind why he does what he does, it's all about the right reasons. It's really truly just about him trying to learn about himself and challenge himself. And our connection is really because he's actually intuitive, and so it's like he already instinctively, just like you, are connected to like science-based principles about things. And so we'll be working on something, and I'll be able to connect the science to his intuition, and then it's like, whoa, it's just cool.
Yeah.
Because it almost like validates, okay, like, yeah, like I know you that was just intuition, but no, it's actually right. Like,
yeah.
And like trust that, and that's a part of fighting. It's like just trusting your intuition. Fighting is about reacting and using your reflexes and training the reactions and reflexes and realizing you got to get out of thinking. Thinking can kill you. You got to be mindless, and you got to be purely connected to what your body's reacting to, in a sense. And then if you can train yourself to be a reaction generator,
yeah,
to where you're constantly freezing a person and breaking their pattern of breathing.
Yep.
But then also when you're getting advanced on, not to just take it head on, but have Slick be the matador. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And being able to seamlessly flow between those personas, and that's like the art that I witness. Whenever I see like guys that are just at their best, and And in a way, I am envious of it, but I'm just so old now.
Hey, I think you can get one. But you need to start a YouTube channel too. Post that stuff on YouTube. I mean, I think people would watch it.
I do. It's so skimpy right now.
Are you only doing Instagram?
When I first started doing it, I would take some of our clips, but it's not formatted that great for YouTube. But dude, we have so much content.
Yeah.
If any editors out there want to hit me up,
Joey Parker.
Yeah, I mean, but if somebody's patient enough to sift through just hours,
Yeah.
hours of workouts and conversations and interactions, and I mean, there's so much good stuff in there. And I swear, like I said, as you guys start meeting your goals and stuff, it's going to be a lot of really cool content.
Especially, I mean, I post this. Let me go out here and knock this dude out my next fight.
Yeah.
Fresh off of ACL repair. Give you some shout outs. It'd be nice. People like it. Yeah. But where can people follow you at?
Man, movement_doc on Instagram. That's my main thing right now. Like I said, really it's just because my lifestyle allows where I can just focus on just doing what I'm already doing. And then I have a very talented brother-in-law that's a videographer that does our videography, and then he edits all of our content, and then he basically sends me the videos, and then I'll just come up with a narrative or what I need to say. And so it makes it super convenient, and honestly it's probably the only way I would do it, because I can't live that lifestyle of trying to chase likes and do this and that.
And you have to post every week, and if you don't want,
and to be honest with you, I almost feel like I almost know in a way that if like we just keep doing what we're doing and just studying the course and just being consistent and showing up every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, and just being, just keep progressing like this, to me, it's inevitable, because there's the things I have to say, they're not mine. I mean, if anything, I'd say most of what I have to say is trying to resurface ancient wisdom and trying to really look at things that have already been around a long time. Those Bulgarian bags have been around a long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot of these concepts, they're not mine. I'm just a funnel and a medium for trying to find best practices and trying to funnel that into a program that is adaptable and can evolve and has a core foundation in the nervous system, all the way back to the visual systems. And really, there's a lot that we do that's just purely focused on engaging different senses intentionally, and I think that by itself is kind of cool, because it might not be these dramatic changes, but what you'll see is when you come to vision and fighting, it's microseconds that make a difference.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So those will add up, it has to. And so I think the hard part is trusting and letting yourself be that way. And that's what I was kind of getting to. Is what's funny is sometimes the conversation is as there's something that tells you should feel ashamed if you're having too much fun, or like it's not benefiting you.
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah. There's like a little voice in the back of your head that you could be getting great work and you're relaxed. Like I remember Alan told me before one of his fights, he said, "Man, I gotta go to the bathroom." He goes, "I don't feel any anxiety." And then he goes, "Is that normal?" And then I was like, "That's the point." I was like, "That's great." He's like, "Awesome." And he just took off and went to the bathroom, and it just stuck in my head like, wow. Like it was like an epiphany he had where it might have been the first time before a fight that he didn't feel any anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was almost like he had to give himself permission to not have anxiety. And the thing is, you don't have to give yourself permission, but you kind of do, because there's something that will stop you and say like, "Oh no, you need to do it differently," or whatever. And it's kind of funny, because those are kind of just as important. It's not changing it; it's just noticing when those little thoughts or emotions or things happen. And if you notice it, you might decide like, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go a little dark today." And maybe that's what you needed to do. Get that shadow out your closet and get a little dark, and let it move. And then, you know, and then it's just, that's the key though. It's not dismissing it and saying like, you know, you feel in a certain way and you go in there and you're like have a bad attitude and you're like spouting off on people and stuff like that. The only reason you're doing that is because you didn't notice the change, and to just give yourself, now you can say, hey, I need to tighten up. Or you might say like, you know, I'm getting a little dark today. I'm gonna punch somebody in the face today. Like, and that's what it is, and it happens. But at least you're intentional about it instead of just it happening and then you being frustrated because you and somebody got into it or whatever the case may be. And so it's a long journey. It's a long road, and it's a hard business. And you're fighting. You're taking damage. The nature of the business itself is requiring you to kind of accept that. But in this day and age, and with you guys' talent and experience, I think it's definitely one of those things where the culture has changed so much in terms of when you first got here, it was just punch face.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Everybody going 100%.
Yep.
Fighting.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was a lot of growth in those days.
No, definitely not.
Now,
I mean,
y'all found out there was some tough dudes, and there was a lot of guys that made it to the show. But what happened? Who stayed?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a part of and I think the culture shift is going to make a difference in terms of where I think you're going to see some longevity.
Yeah.
You know?
I like it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, especially with up-and-comers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's about an hour. I guess go follow him on Instagram for sure at movement_doc. And what? Neolife is what? Neolife PT?
Neolife Physical Therapy and Wellness. We're on Facebook and on Instagram. And like I said, we have locations in D'Iberville, Gulfport, and Bay St. Louis.
Yeah, so if you're around here, definitely check them out. I mean, I honestly cannot tell you one other physical therapy place around here that I've even seen. So I don't even pay attention to them. Only place I've ever gone since I've been down there. Before I ever came down here, I never even went to physical therapy once ever.
Just so you would have a real point of reference.
Yes, maybe I should one day. I might do that. Whenever I get back to work UPS and use my insurance again, just go there one day. And
you should.
Oh, I just want to check it out.
Yeah, and I have a feeling you come back and be like, all right, Rob, like, you're doing something here, man.
Yeah. Every time I go in there now, I'm like, man, I'm doing the same thing every day. Let me go home. I can do this at my house is what I think whenever I'm up there. And I'm like, other than scraping, I go up there for the scraping right now. Yeah. Like all the other stuff, I'm thinking like, man, I can do this at the house. Just give me a sheet. Let me do it at the house. Y'all can say I've been up here for an hour or whatever, and then scrape me. Yeah. And then, but now, so yeah, if I go somewhere else.
It really don't start for you till weeks 7, 8, week 6, 7, 8. But like I said, then you hit like week 10, and you got to take it back for a week or two. And then once you get to week 12, then it's fun. Yeah. Then it's every day we're doing something new. Every day is challenging. Every day is a new adventure. Yeah, you're just confined in this protocol-based rehab. The first 4 weeks of ACL, post-operatively, or any surgery for that matter, it's just you're just trying to you're trying to heal, and so really the first 6 weeks is really kind of critical in terms of healing, and then around that 8-week mark, it's almost like everything starts to kind of come together at the same time. Yeah. But then, like I said, you hit that soft period, and then week 12, we hit the ground running, and then that 3 to 6 month mark is kind of like it's just full bore progression, and then we're just looking around that 4 to 6 month mark to see like, all right, what's most appropriate in terms of returning back to training. And then testing it in a way where we can almost predict if there would be an issue. We're going to notice something here instead of it happening there. You know? Yep.
All right. Well, hell, I appreciate you coming on. I'll be looking forward to weeks 12 and on.
No doubt. No doubt.
I don't want to get back to where I was. I want to get better than where I was. I literally want to see my legs look like I watched a video the other day. I was front squatting 245. I was like, man, I probably couldn't front squat with when my knee gets better at 135. So I want to be doing 300 when I get back.
Oh yeah. Well, even when they unlock that brace in 2 weeks, like we'll start having a little more fun with it. You know.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Thanks, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, what about this one, B? Sleight of hand, no magic tricks, and that adrenaline, well, that's the fix. Unless it gets my heart pumping, ain't no competition. Anybody who want it can come get some ambition, baby. Where there ain't no ceilings. If you feel some type of way, hey, get out your feelings. It's a duel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Max a million. Talking dollars, that's the minimum. The max a billion. Whoa, Bees killer in my corner. We armed with them bars. Get the bump and set it off like alarms in them cars. Before you think about it, stop in the octagon. Before you end up getting dropped in the octagon. Respect is in order and you better respect it, or it's off with his head. Guillotines for breakfast. Good night. I done seen successes and my seed successors of this legacy. You're looking at a king, a legend.